ZMF Headphones offers two exceptional open-back dynamic headphones in the middle of their price range, the Auteur and the Aeolus. So, what's the difference? So the Auteur is obviously an incredibly well-regarded headphone from ZMF, and I think, if I'm remembering what they say on their website, they were sort of trying to create something that was pretty neutral and maybe pulled back a little bit on their house sound to try to give a more even and honest presentation. And I think that's actually sort of a fair assessment of this headphone. It is pretty neutral. It feels like it doesn't overly emphasize any part of the sound range, but it does have a touch of warmth in that ZMF fashion, what you'd sort of expect and want from ZMF. But it kind of keeps all the instrumentation and the vocals on an even playing field where there's nothing really sort of emphasized or jumping out. And you get to sort of pick and choose where you want to zone your interest into. And it's got a sort of ease and smoothness to it. The treble is a nice little snap to it, but it's not sharp or aggressive. And the mids are, they're very clear. They're not congested. You get that detail from them and some separation and smoothness. And the bass is very satisfying. It's not crazy bass head deep, but it's rewarding and it's fun. They're pretty wide. They're wider than something like the Verite, and to my ears, I think they're warmer and thicker than the Verite as well. There's a little less detail and clarity, as you might expect, than the top of the line. But I think the response is really flat and consistent across the line, and they do seem to respond really well to a better cable like the standard OFC that comes with them, or now maybe it's just the standard, what ZMF calls its standard cable. I haven't heard that one, but the OFC I feel like robs something from them, whereas like going to the Mechanicos, is that right? Whatever. The silver cable, something that is a bit more transparent, seems to make them a bit more interesting. But for me overall, I just feel like this headphone doesn't really have an opinion, and maybe that's great. Maybe you want an all-arounder that's very neutral and isn't going to color your music, but is going to present it with just a little bit of warmth. Then this might be the pick for you. But it was just a little hard to get excited about it. I just put them on and listened to them, and I just was like, yeah, that's great. Everything sounds really good. But if I started to wander, if my attention wandered, they wouldn't pull me back to the music. They wouldn't grab me and say, listen to this. Oh my gosh, this vocal, listen to this artist's voice. It's incredible. Or, wow, did you hear the rasp on that bass pluck? Like, there were never those moments where it's like, I love this. I'm engaged again. So yeah, it's like, you can't fault them. They sound beautiful. They sound like smooth and articulate and detailed. But for me, they don't sound super exciting. And at $1,600 at that point in the line, maybe that's what what I want to respond to more, is something that sort of captures my attention and gives me a point of view. Now, not everyone wants that, and I appreciate that. And in fact, again, this is one of those, like, if you could only have one headphones, maybe this would be the one, because it isn't going to push or pull anything. You just get to kind of enjoy it. Now onto the Aeolus. $1,200 as opposed to $1,600. Again, open back. Again, ZMF. This particular model is a rarity, as they call them, in mango wood. Very pretty. So a little spindier, but I don't think the wood is making a substantial enough sound difference that it sort of negates the comparison here of a standard Aeolus and a standard Auteur. So where the Auteur is, like I said, sort of a bit more neutral in its presentation and sits back a bit and lets you sort of choose what you want to come forward. The Aeolus is much more opinionated. It definitely has a point of view, and I think that point of view is warm, which I like. I think it's that ZMF sort of house sound that you come to expect. And a bit sharp at the same time. I often sort of associate sharp with being a bit more cold or clinical, but that's not the case here. This is both exacting and sort of powerful and forward, but also has some of that sort of natural, sort of warmer presentation. It feels very honest when you're listening to this. It feels like, yeah, like you're like, it's a very natural, very honest presentation of the music. You know, vocals sort of, you know, come forward. They're very detailed. They're very robust. I think the vocal presentation compared to other things in the ZMF line, like the Auteurs, and I mean, even like compared to the Verite, I thought the vocals on this sort of are a bit more pronounced, and that sort of mid and upper mid range come forward. The imaging is really nice on these, but I wouldn't say they have a very big sound stage. They respond really well to pad swapping, and that you can get very sort of different characters out of them to come forward. If you put on some icon pads, they're going to get lower and darker and heavier, and that bass is going to come out, and the sound stage is going to get a little bit broader since those pads are a little deeper. If you go with like a shallower, rounded, sort of less porous material, like a Tacony sheepskin, or I had some Kinnerton pads that are cowhide, natural cowhide, I'm pretty sure. You know, there you're going to decrease the bass, you're going to bring up the brightness, you're going to bring up the detail. So it's kind of fun. It's kind of interesting to see what the range of this headphone is. But I like it right in the middle. I like it with the, what is it? The sort of, the universal, I think it's the universal, suede pads, perforated suede pads, I think were my favorite of everything, because it's that really nice balance between being bright and interesting, and sort of sharp and detailed, but still having that warmth and natural presentation, which is what I want out of a ZMF headphone, personally. Again, I tested it on both solid state and tubes. I think this headphone sounds great on tubes. I think it gets maybe the sort of precision and the forward and the sharpness of it gets maybe overly emphasized for me on a more exacting solid state amplifier. Maybe a warmer solid state would end up in the right place. But for me, this sounded really good on tubes, and honestly, it just sounded really great in general. For me, I'd have this over the Auteur any day. It's much more interesting, much more sort of fun and engaging to listen to. And I really think this is like the sweet spot in the ZMF line. You know, I guess I've tried about 4 pairs of ZMF now, and like the icons are super fun. They're very V-shaped. They got the, you know, the big bass and then sort of quite a bit of width in their soundstage. And the Verites are just, they kind of do everything so well, but they're almost like a little too good, a little too refined from what I want out of a ZMF headphone. And I think at that $1,200 price that these guys are at, they really deliver a lot of value. It's crazy to say that's a very expensive headphone, but when you recognize that a Verite is more than twice that, I feel like in the world of ZMF, these are the right balance between detail and warmth and bass and price. So there you have it. That's my pick of the litter.